Good afternoon. I'm Molly, also known as the Deeply Renegade, and I am randomly standing here, um, drinking my homemade to actually sit down and do a little bit of sampling for Plying with you guys. So this is one of the last steps. It makes it fairly bright, all things considered. A lot of white will give you pastel, and this doesn't really feel pastel to me. So I'm standing here. There's stuff on the ground that you can't see. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. Okay. So hopefully this is far enough back that can actually give you sort of a sense of how things are coming together here. So first things first, what it be? Well, I can just sort of pull willy-nilly at random. What I'm going to do, because this 4-ounce section is like all on the bobbin still, is I'm going to pull some length off of it. If I was going for a full project, I would end up winding, but I don't necessarily want to go all the way. Because that would be a little bit too intense. So, where would it be? And I would actually like to have most of that yardage be reserved for stash dash. So that is why I'm not pulling anything right now. And what I'm going to do to sample is I'll actually just use my spindle, because I won't be making a lot of any given, I won't be spinning a lot of any given color, so you could probably just grab a new spindle for every single sample I end up making today. And it has been a while since I've tried on a spindle, but it should be a big deal for this. So, got my spindle, leader on, all of that good stuff. And so what I'm going to do here is actually pull, I think, 2 arm lengths in order to create the sample that I want. This guy has been resting for quite some time. So there should actually be quite a lot here to go from. I'm actually a little bit of green snuck on this, entertaining. So this is being slightly more annoying than I was hoping it would be, but whatever, such is life. So what I'm going to try first is what there is probably other things that I could end up doing to make this go. So, just a little bit crazy. Okay. So, I'm just straightening everything out, adding the twist. And actually sort of interesting in the fact that, I don't know, I don't think this is going to actually look brown when it's over. But I don't have a lot in this sample, but we shall see. It's like most of this is actually going to be leader. And upon further thought and review, I'm wondering if I'm actually applying this backwards. Because it really wasn't taking very much twist at all. So what I'm seeing is sort of the bright pops of color going on. Now we are going back the other way based on inertia. Yeah, I think I was adding twist the wrong direction. It's like, that's what I get for not plying on a spindle in a long time. Because it was looking really energized. So, that should be a lot better. I was like, have to like stop and think about what the right way is and what the wrong way is. So I am not getting the impression of brown as I do this, so that is a good sign, at least for me, that this will end up being pretty nice. And then I'm not being super careful as I apply this. At this point, the yarn management is close enough now that I'm not going to have too many weird things going on here. And I'm almost to the end. So once I hit that end, I'll break it. Stop the spindle. I'm just like putting a knot in the end of my singles so that, or at the end of my applied yarn, just so everything ends up being contained. So what I see going on here is certainly decent amount of green is what's showing through, and I think part of that just has to do with like what section I was pulling from. But also, I'll keep this. But I am seeing like the bright pops of the red and the orange in here as well. So I'll bring this in really close. Can hardly see anything at all. So maybe we can get a better impression better in this. Wait for it to focus. There we go. So that's what we're seeing. Like trying to see if I can make it bigger so I can see what's going on too. So this has all of the colors in it. The sample that I'm working with just has a little bit of it. But I am actually really digging how this has turned out. So what I've done here was I took 2 arm lengths of my warm color and then applied to end up matching for the rest. Would it be? But I am liking how this is turning out. I think it does look fun. And this would make for yarn that is endlessly barber pulling. When we're talking about weight of yarn, would it be like, I would say that this is going to be like a 4-ply fingering. So that's another thing to keep in mind as well, is part of the reason why I was attracted to a 4-ply construction is that I would end up getting a bigger weight yarn. So it definitely looks much more complicated knit than it does just a straight up yarn, as you do. Working with the fabric, also trying to figure out what type of project would work really well with this yarn. And with 8 ounces, I don't probably have enough to do a a full-on proper garment with this, but something to keep in mind. I don't know, I'm finding it to be very fun looking, at least to me. So the color that I see here, and can definitely see how like the light and dark shifting will actually be very cool. Let's see how close I can get that in. But well, really not a big sample. And I think what I'm going to do, maybe we'll focus. Could happen as I'm working with this. I could decide that I like this option better than the could happen as I'm working with this. I could decide that I like this option better than the 4-ply, which is totally valid. I'm trying to convince myself right now that no way is superior to the other. So in this case, it'll have to be in 2 parts. Just convincing, because I also have the green to deal with as well. Definitely way finer yarn. I don't know if that's probably, it might be that the green is a little bit thicker. Or something along those lines, but that's not the end of the world. I am getting really good color mixing with this, which probably means that my color runs in the fiber itself are very short. So that's going to end up probably showing up on this as very random color. So that will be interesting. Sort of curious how the green will turn out as well. I'm willing to wait to find out how that does. Which is entirely personal preference. Take 2 on my own. The colored fiber that I ended up blending for this project was actually a prize for the Caboose and Arbitrary Spin the Bin 1 year. So this is not fiber that I purchased myself, which means it is not, what would it be? So I think that was also a part of the challenge of the project, was being like, okay, what can I do with this, even though it's not my normal color choices. There. Would it be? I'm still liking this one. I think I managed to get away with having this be distinct enough that it doesn't end up looking muddy in the end. But up next is the green. So I'm guessing what's going to end up happening between all of these is trying to figure out which one I'm actually connected to on Lazy Kate so that I can disentangle them. Okay. So what I suspect will happen is that I'll end up going with the 4-ply, but that I will be glad that I've gone through this exercise. See what ends up. A little bit of the darker. In this case, almost there. Push that before it backwards. A little twist on its own. Get her off. Okay. So this yarn here has turned out with a little bit of the lighter green and the darker green in it, which is fine. I'm going to put a little knot in the end of this guy and then knit the circle. So we will get a little bit like a 3-ply wood just by itself. So tell how the final yarn would look just because there isn't a lot of the darker color in there, but we'll make it work. Certainly a couple of entertaining details in there based on my lackadaisical chain plying on a spindle. But I don't know, I'm actually inclined to go with my original plan of 4-ply. I'm not sure if 4-ply was my plan when I started the project. 4-ply became my plan when I started the second green, or the second half of the project with the green. But I am thinking that will end up looking really cool in the end. And then the other question would be whether or not there is other yarn that I could combine with it. Would it be I ended up preparing that yesterday. Final swatch. Focus. Excellent. But I don't know. I'm liking how the 4-ply is looking with the added benefit that it's a little bit thicker. So that is the stack. Like, is the pure color fun as well? Absolutely. I think that had I not had the other color of yarn, I would be really happy with the yarn that I'm creating either of them. Definitely not getting as much of the white impression with either of the other two. There's that. The other thing that's going on with the swatch is that I'm probably getting longer runs of color than I actually have. I will have sort of a more consistent yarn overall when doing like a chain ply one too. Up close again. With the focus. 4-ply, the warm tones chain ply, and the cool tones chain ply. And my really janky pills. So there's the story there. Fun to get a chance to try this out. In the future, it would be probably the smart thing to have done is actually to have pulled links and done a straight up 3-ply with yarn instead of the chain ply. With the thought process there being, that would probably give like a truer sense of how the yarn would end up turning out. Would it be? Definitely, or would it be? Definitely a little bit more tooth than I was expecting in the finished yarn. But it's also freshly spun and freshly knit as well. So there's that. But shouldn't be too crazy. I'm looking forward to finishing the project. I will be saving the plying of this yarn for the beginning of Stash Dash. So I won't get it going. I'll just keep filling my bobbins with singles. Right now, all of my bobbins are full. So the other project that I have going on is this dark and light Jacob that I'm putting together for a fog hat. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And in that case, what I'm going to be doing is winding center pull balls of these and these, and then applying from both ends of the center pull in order to create the yarn. Because I'm aiming for the K weight. I feel like slightly nervous with getting so close to the fiber, but it's fine. So I hope that this little exercise was nice for sort of understanding the project and the color that I was trying to put together, and would it be sort of doing like a sanity check to make sure that the colors that I were combining weren't going to turn out in a bad way, but in a good way. And it's very subjective, right? You just have to spin it and knit it. Because you don't really know how it's going to turn out until you get that little bit further down the road. But would it be with 2 arm lengths, you can learn an awful lot about what's going on. And an arm length, roughly speaking, is your height. So there's that. And it's not like you're going to get tons of information from that amount, but it means you're not using up too much of the fiber to figure out how it is you'd like for it to be. Hardcore samplers would sample in bigger amounts. But I didn't, strictly speaking, want to take like half an ounce to sample Plying. I just wanted to get a rough check. So, looking forward to the project. It seems likely that actually I would end up making a live video about the Plying process as well. So that is a definite possibility. The odds are looking pretty good at this point that I'll be leaving my green singles on the bobbins, on the lazy Kates, but I will need to center pull wind this in order to be ready for the next stage of the process. Because all 4 ounces of this is on this bobbin, and I need access to both ends in order to ply. So that's the only thing that I need to think about. So I'll be pulling from the center pull ball for this guy, and then probably having these on the hazy cape during the plying process. And that's just what would it be, depending on how you do your splitting of yarn, or splitting of fiber for each bobbin. Like, it's nice to have it be set up the way that you would eventually like to ply, but it's not required. And there are certainly projects where it makes sense to have all of that sorted much earlier on, but it's okay if it's not perfect. When you're doing like a fractal construction, for example, like you do care about what order things are in and that everything is split properly before you begin. But for these ones which have this sort of blended fiber going on, like there's no color pattern to disrupt. Right? So that's just something to keep in mind as well, is that there is a decent amount of flexibility there. Now I'm just trying to make sure that everything is well sorted. But please feel free